Hey there. So, if you've seen any videos on my channel, I do talking head videos sometimes where I'm sitting here in this chair, looking at my computer, looking at the camera, and just kind of talking. Sometimes I bring up a computer screen, sometimes I don't, but just these talking videos. And when I do that, what I use is what's called the Canon EOS Utility. And what it allows me to do is start remote capture, a few things like that from my Canon T4i. It's an older DSLR, but it does 1080p 30 frames per second video. And with nice lenses, it comes up with a great picture. What I end up having to do after I have recorded on with that camera, I have to pull the video off of the camera physically, essentially off the memory card, bring it in the computer to edit. And then when I'm doing that, while the audio is okay from the Canon T4i, I also use my desk microphone to record the audio at the same time. And it's an extra step of editing because I have to put the microphone audio on top of the video from the Canon T4i, get that all audio synced up. Just a few extra steps. Not hard stuff, but extra steps. So I was starting to look at how to better do that kind of stuff, and also maybe use that camera for live streaming, if I wanted to do some live streaming, because I do have some webcams that are decent. They're kind of around, you know, one of the more popular ones and stuff like that. But if I ever want to use it to switch to a full screen, it's not great quality full screen 1080p. So what I had purchased a little while ago was the CamLink 4K from Elgato. And what it does is it takes HDMI out of your camera, brings it into a little dongle, and out of the dongle you get USB 3.0, which then goes into your computer, and it lets you basically use any camera with a good HDMI feed as a webcam. So I thought that'd be great for the Canon T4i. Problem is the Canon T4i is not one of the listed supported cameras. Now, the reason why is because the HDMI out of that camera is not clean. I'll get into that more in a little bit, but it's not fully clean. So there are some limitations on how the CamLink works with that camera. It's still good, but there are some limitations. I also used it with my GoPro Hero 7 Black, and there were some other issues there. I'll talk more about that after as well. But in the last couple weeks, Canon has now released a beta utility called the EOS Webcam Utility Beta. What it does is lets you take the USB connection off of your camera, feed it into, of course, the USB of your computer, and it'll treat your DSLR as a webcam without having to use a capture thing like the CamLink. Like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Again, there's not a listed driver for the Canon T4i. So thought I was out of luck there too. But what I decided to try was the driver from the Canon T6i and see how it does. And it does work. There are limitations as well. It is beta software, and it's obvious that it's beta in some cases from crashes and things like that I get in OBS. But what I'm going to do in this video is kind of do a comparison of the video quality of the Canon T4i directly out of the camera, and doing my normal processor, what has been my normal processor, adding the other audio on top from the external microphone. And then I'm going to do a video with the CamLink being brought into the OBS software, and my desktop microphone brought in on top of that. If that's good enough quality, that saves me a step in post-editing. And then I'm also going to do a video, a piece with the same thing, bringing the camera into OBS, but this time using the CamLink, or using the Webcam Utility Beta. And we'll see what that looks like with the microphone on top of that, just to see what the difference in video quality is. Because one of the things about the Canon T4i, it is a USB 2.0 connection. There's a limitation in bandwidth. And then also the processor in the camera will have a limitation on how much it can process the data and push it out that USB port. So we're going to give this a test, and we'll kind of go through that. And if I got enough time, I'll slap in the GoPro Hero 7 Black on the CamLink, show you what that looks like, talk about some of the limitations on that. Let's look at what we got here. Canon T4i with just the 24mm fixed focal length camera, so no zoom on it or anything like that. It does have autofocus, EFS autofocus. Off the side here, I've got both the USB 2.0 connection and the HDMI coming out to the CamLink. Both of those going to the computer. I'm not sure I recommend using that setup. I get in some crashes sometimes, and I think it's because trying to send out data on both ports definitely does impact things. Okay, so now I'm recording off of right onto the camera. I did start the trigger from the EOS Utility. So that is running from there. I am recording in Audacity on my desktop microphone. The one thing you might notice is that I move back and forth. It does track me because I've got autofocus on. Sometimes I find the autofocus is just too much, so I will turn off the autofocus on the lens, and I just have to be careful how much I move. Fixed focal length lens, I only have a short space where it is in focus, so if I move around too much, that kind of stuff. So generally I set the focus where I want to be, turn off the autofocus, and then record from there. So this is the quality of the video coming from that piece. Now, one thing to note when you go to switch from this to using the EOS Webcam Utility, if you've started the normal EOS Utility for doing the live capture or the live triggering and the remote capturing, if you've done that or started that, you can't use the webcam utility at this point, because basically the EOS utility, as soon as you start up the camera and you plug in the USB, the EOS utility decides it needs to be the one in charge of the camera. So then you can't use it as a webcam. So you have to go in to Task Manager in Windows and shut off that utility, shut off the EOS utility, so that you can be actually picked up as a webcam in OBS. So that's one trick to remember. And if your computer is set to start the EOS utility as soon as you plug in your camera, you're going to have to turn that off that way as well, even if you haven't done any remote shooting. So just one thing to note. Okay, I'm going to now skip over, and the next step will be from the webcam, or the CamLink 4K from Elgato. Now I have come into using the CamLink from Elgato, CamLink 4K from Elgato. Two things you'll notice right away. One is the black bars all around the video. It is coming out of the camera as a 1080p feed on the HDMI, but you can see I'm not getting the full 1080p as camera pixels. So I'm losing some resolution here. You'll also notice the white box around my face right here. That is the auto-focusing, and there's no way to turn off that white box in the software of the Canon T4i on the HDMI output. That's unfortunate. Yeah, because it locked up on me. Okay, there we're back. It crashed on me. I was talking about the white boxes around my face. What crashed, I believe, is because I had the USB and the HDMI connected, I think the camera got confused on what it was supposed to do. I mentioned before that I think that happens sometimes. It just happened to me again. So I've now disconnected the USB. I'm using the HDMI out through the CamLink for this right now. So yeah, black bars around, white box around my face. There's no way to turn off the white auto tracking box on the output from the HDMI, unfortunately. I have heard on the net if I turn the camera upside down, it will no longer recognize my face as a face, so the facial tracking turns off. I haven't tried that myself, but I've heard that it works. It makes a strange kind of sense, but I haven't tried that myself. What does work, though, is if I turn off the autofocus on the lens on the camera. If I turn that off, the box goes away. And what I end, of course, I lose then is I lose the autofocus. But as I said when I was talking about just when I do the direct capture or I do the remote capture trigger, I sometimes turn off the autofocus anyway, because it can be a little wonky and it decides to lose focus when I look away or something like that, that kind of stuff. So what I will do is I will turn off the autofocus and just kind of make sure that I'll manually focus that I'm basically in focus as best I can. And then I gotta stay in the area where I need to be. Yeah, so that's pretty good for where I'm at. So that's good. Now the other problem, of course, is the black bars. Now I can get around that if I need it. But what I can do is I can resize the window. So I'm not doing the screen capture right now. I'm just recording the actual camera settings. But what I'm doing is I'm moving. You'll be able to see some of the stuff that's going on. I'm seeing some of the stuff change as the blue bars behind kind of come up. So now I've removed all that kind of stuff from the window, and all I've got is the actual image. So I'll move the image up into the corner, and I'll move it across. I got it a little wide, but I'll bring it in, and there we go. So now it's taking up the full frame of the 1080p, but it's not quite a full 1080p source. So I lose a little resolution there. So I want to see what that actually looks like as a difference from the direct or the remote capture, the stuff recorded directly in the camera as opposed to what's recorded here on my desktop, because OBS settings will also make a difference on what that looks like when I go to bring that into editing. Hopefully I've got my OBS recording settings turned up high enough to make it look pretty good. So there's that. This works not bad. The only other trick, of course, with the Canon T4i is that it'll turn off after 30 seconds of doing 30 minutes of recording. So it turns off after 30 minutes. So it's when I've live streamed with it on Twitch, Big Goofy Runner, the self-promotion. But yeah, when I've recorded on Twitch, or when I've live streamed with it, I just kind of watch, and as we get close to the 30-minute time, I'll take a good spot to turn off the camera, turn it back on, and then I'm good for another 30 minutes. So I'll do that sometimes. So that's not bad. So next step is I'm going to stop the recording. I'll switch and put in the USB cable again because it does not like both in at the same time. And we'll get the camera going again, and I'll show you what the webcam utility looks like in OBS and some of the limitations there. So now I am recording from the USB off of the Canon T4i using the EOS Webcam Utility. I can already see that it's not showing me all the frames, so you can kind of see that. That's what's happening. You can see the black bars around the picture, so you know, same as with the CamLink, that it's not a full resolution output. The problem is I've already expanded this, the whole screen. It's not a 1920 by 1080p, a 1920 by 1080 pixel output through the USB. It's actually 1024 by 576. So I've lost resolution, and then there's also these black bars are in that smaller resolution. So brought up to fuller screen or bigger screen, we're definitely losing resolution there. So it's definitely not going to look as good as what would be recorded directly in the camera or in the CamLink. And we'll also see when this gets looked at after. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, we are dropping frames. We're not getting a full 30 frames per second out of this, which is also unfortunate. Maybe it's okay for a webcam, but anyway. So what I can do, again, I will resize this so I get rid of the black bars, and then I'll get this so that it covers the whole. See, and there's the other thing, is it doesn't quite give you even a 16:9 video out of it. I don't think it's quite 4:3, but it's not a 16:9 on the actual frame itself. So that's kind of a little strange. So I'll expand that out, move my head up a little bit so at least I'm all there, and that is now much more obvious that I'm dropping frames. So that's unfortunate, and that's probably also why this camera is not listed as one of the supported cameras, It's probably the processor in the camera is not really built or capable of running that full 30 frames per second properly out of that USB 2.0 port. So that's unfortunate, but it's kind of still interesting that it's there. And if you just needed something and you've got this camera already, that's good, because now this could also be used in like Skype, something like that. So in this day and age where you've got major webcam scalpers, it's hard to get webcams, it's hard to get capture stuff. This gives you an option. It may not be perfect, but it's something. And I like it. I like the idea. So let's look and see what this looks like if I just say was to take this down and use it as just a little webcam. So as a little webcam, if I'm recording my screen, it's not an awful option. It's not bad. You do drop frames. I can still see the frames are dropping when I'm looking at what's actually on my screen. But it is something. It does work. So that's pretty awesome. Yeah. One other thing, a couple other things to note. If I try to go into the settings in OBS for this source while it's active, it shuts off. Sometimes that causes OBS to crash. It's beta software, also not meant for this specific camera, so I'm not taking a shot at OBS or the Canon for this. I'm getting an extra free feature that's got bugs, so I'm okay with that. So yeah, it looks not bad that way. I'm gonna blow that back up because I don't want to stay like that. So next option, I'm going to move to a Logitech webcam and see what that looks like. So this is now the Logitech C922. Everybody and their dog apparently has a C920. The 922, what it brings to the table is you can get 60 frames per second out of 720p instead of just 30. Other than that, it's basically identical in the specs. It's just what was available when I was looking. Unfortunate thing is right now I think there's a bug either in the software or the drivers with the Logitech, or there's I don't remember this being an issue before I installed the drivers for the Canon T4i, but I cannot get up to 1920 by 1080 on it right now, and it also will not do the 60 frames per second it's supposed to do at 720p. So this right now is set at 1600 by 896. It's not great image in comparison to the Canon T4i. So, but you know, most of the time you're using it like that, right? Just a little webcam, which, yeah, is much better. It looks much better in that case, just looking like that. Compared to the Canon T4i, with the limitations, even though it's not fully great, you still get a really nice image quality out of the Canon T4i using it as a webcam compared to the Logitech webcam here. And a good chunk of it is just the sensor and the processor in the camera and the stuff that's going on there, just giving you such a much nicer picture. So it's very, very cool. It's pretty awesome that I can now use the Canon T4i for the streaming and stuff like that. Even with the limitations, I think it's worth it for the video quality, for me specifically. Anyway, so yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so my next step will be to I'm going to plug in my GoPro Hero 7 Black into the CamLink 4K and talk about some of the limitations there. So now what we got going on here, and you're going to already notice a problem, but what we already got going on here, is the GoPro Hero 7 Black going into the Elgato CamLink 4K into the computer, and I'm recording it through OBS and using my desktop microphone with it. But you can already see we have a lag. The video is lagged compared to the audio. This is not necessarily a problem with anything specifically. It just seems to happen more on the GoPro. I mean, there is additional processing that needs to happen with the GoPro video. This lag is much more noticeable on when I've got the GoPro set to full 4K 60 frames per second. Right now I've got it set to 1080p 30 to more match what the Canon T4i can do and what the Logitech was supposed to be able to do. But there's still a bunch of video processing lag. So I'm going to try and stop this and fix it. 1 second. Okay, so I've got that now set up. It should be close. It's about 1,000 millisecond delay, so almost a full second delay for the video processing right now out of the GoPro. But I didn't do any of that stuff with the... Okay, we're back. So for whatever reason, it also shut off. I don't know why the GoPro shut off there. But yeah, with the Canon T4i, I didn't put any delay on the processing. But with the GoPro, I need to put like a full second delay. And that's just with the video and my mic audio. If I had, say, gameplay or some other audio source, that would need to delay as well, just to get everything to sync properly when it's going there. So that's unfortunate. And yeah, I'd hoped to be able to use the GoPro because I like the wider screen. It would have been great as a webcam, I think. But that delay is just not great. Also, I can plug it in and charge at the same time I'm doing this, but it gets kind of ugly. Basically, after about 10-15 minutes, it overheats, essentially. I was just trying to process the video and charge at the same time. It just overheats. So I can just do it without overheating, but I get about an hour out of the battery, and then I've got to basically pop the GoPro out of its case, put a new battery in, put it back on. Not ideal, really. So GoPro, unfortunately, I could do it for short things, but I wouldn't use it as just something I've got set up. Okay, conclusion. How does the Canon T4i work with stuff it isn't supported on? It works not bad. There are limitations I kind of showed and went through. It does work not bad. I can work around the limitations, especially with the CamLink, using the CamLink that will let me do some of my talking head videos where I also show stuff on screen with my head just popping in, that kind of stuff. It works really well for that. And I may even use the webcam utility when I'm live streaming, just because it probably uses a little bit less processing power on the computer. But even though it drops a few frames and things like that, I don't think it'd be that noticeable on a live stream. So it's interesting. I like it. Yeah. So let me know in your comments down below. Hopefully this was helpful for someone that was wondering what to do with a Canon T4i to use as a webcam. And I just enjoyed experimenting and seeing what I could do. So anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.